Now connecting you to the College Sports Connection podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the College Sports Connection podcast. I'm your host, Alex the Captain. Joining me, as always, AJ the Guru.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, AJ? It's been a wild week with the MAC. Just seeing some of the news that's come down, and so it gives us plenty to talk about this week.
Yeah, it kind of all came down at one time too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it kind of came all out within a couple of days of each other. But Bowling Green's BGSU, Akron, Kent State, and who else am I missing?
We've got Western Michigan has done some cuts.
Yep.
It's just been an absolutely nuts time. I figured we might as well just dive on in, talk about some stuff. They're talking California schools are not going to have college football this fall.
Saw that. I saw California state schools aren't planning on opening in the fall, but Florida is. Florida's planning.
Is. Yep.
I guess we'll take what we can get, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, and you mentioned it the other day when we were texting about it. It's interesting about Ohio State was supposed to play at Oregon this year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's not happening?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's going to be because it was supposed to be early September. So who knows what they'll try? Who knows what they'll do that week? And the way I look at it too, I was talking to my dad about this weekend. I would cut your losses and just cut out all of the non-conference games and just play conference games.
Agreed. More money to be made that way anyway. I mean, because now it's higher stakes. Like you've got, let's say Ohio State plays Indiana week 1, like they've done randomly for a couple years. Let's say they play them week 1.
They've even done it on a Thursday and Friday night.
Yeah, which I think that takes away from some of the high school football, but that's another story for another time. But just imagine like Ohio State, playing a full 12-game Big Ten schedule. You play everybody but one team in the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that would be really, really cool to see. And all these schools, that I think that would be beneficial for them. I think it would cripple, you've got your Power 5 and then your Group of 5 schools. I think that would really, really cripple conferences like the MAC or the Sun Belt, things like that.
I think so, too.
Just because of the loss of money. Right,
because, for example, Ball State comes to Ohio State in a couple of years, and Ohio State's going to pay them $2 million. Like, that $2 million goes to Muncie. It's huge.
Yeah.
That funds a lot of things because these are it's interesting, too, because they don't make – MAC schools in general, I don't think, make a whole lot of money on ticket sales. Because you could look at a MACtion game on a Wednesday night, and nobody's there.
Yeah.
So, it's – I don't know. This is going to be really interesting. I look for there to be more cuts across the board from all MAC schools, but not only MAC schools, like the Conference USAs, the Sun Belts, the Mountain West Conference possibly, things like, smaller schools like that, those non-Power 5s are going to they're going to hurt, and they're going to hurt severely, I think, here this season in all sports.
Well, and I think this is something that I've kind of been brewing up in my head a little bit the last couple of days, and I've texted it to you about the idea of conference realignments. I think we are, with everything going on with COVID and the loss of spring sports, the loss of the NCAA tournament, because that generates a lot of cash, especially for those small schools who are getting the chance to play on this national stage. Like a UMBC, the Maryland school that upset Virginia a few years ago. They got paid a stupid amount of cash for advancing in the tournament. So I think a lot of these schools lose out on this revenue, and it just sucks because basketball and football were their two funding things, and you now lost one of them. It's going to be a really, really rough fall.
This is definitely a conversation we can get into next week with our guests. We'll maybe say their name at the end of the podcast, but we have somebody from the MAC conference who has a really good insight to all this, so we'll be able to talk to that individual and get a good idea about what's going to happen. But there hasn't been anything the past 2 days, which is I guess no news is good news.
That's what they
say. But I was talking to my brother about this earlier because we're both Ball State alum. Ball State just built a brand new golf facility, and I think it opened this year. And so whether golf is one of those programs that's cut for however long, have they said how long these programs are going to be cut for?
The individual programs are going to be cut, from what I've been seeing, indefinitely. But the MAC restructured their postseason, to affect the next 4 years, and it'll be the press release I see here from Grain's Detroit Business was the plan covers 4 years and will be evaluated as the economic situation stabilizes and improves. Additionally, reductions will be made in championship operational expenditures. They didn't talk about how much money it's going to save the league. Football was left alone, as for obvious reasons in every conference. It's the sport that drives all the revenue to cover the entire year. Again, followed by basketball, like I mentioned. The thing that I thought was interesting, though, for the MAC, and I don't know what other conferences are doing this. I haven't really found any other conferences doing this, but travel rosters for the MAC are going to be cut by 6 players. A lot of people are like, okay, 6 players, not a big deal. So they're losing 76, it's going down to 70. That can be, you have to be very strategic in which 6 players you're comfortable not bringing as a coach. Because you look at, let's say you don't bring your third string quarterback. Why you wouldn't is, I don't know, but, let's say you don't. You now have no quarterbacks if your top 2 guys get injured, which we saw with Northern Illinois a couple of years ago. They were down to their 5th string quarterback?
Something like that.
They had to pull a guy off of redshirt to play and finish the season. So, I think it's those kind of things that you have to be very strategic about. They've also eliminated hotel stays the night before home games, which I understand why they did that, but I think that adds an interesting dynamic. Those players are now going to stay in their dorm rooms.
That was interesting, too, because Ball State would go from Muncie down to Indianapolis, stay in a hotel, then come back to Muncie. That made no sense to me.
Yeah. No, that doesn't make any sense at all, actually.
No. And I was thinking of this, too. We talk about football driving other programs. We look at a program like Akron last year. There's no way they made money to drive their entire athletic department. There's absolutely no way. They went winless, right?
Pretty close to winless.
Yeah.
I think they had maybe 1 or 2 wins at most.
If that, So there's no way that their financial, income drove the athletic program. So, because they're the school that made the most cuts, right?
Yeah, they got rid of a lot of programs. Let me pull it up really quick. I pulled up a couple articles here.
Right, because they can't cut football because they've got a big stadium and they just can't sit there empty.
Yeah, can you imagine going past that in the fall? They lost their golf team was one of the things that they lost. They're cutting $65 million from its yearly budget. Athletic department is looking at a 23% reduction, about $4.5 million. Immediately cutting the golf team. That's just the other teams that there it is. The other teams they lost were men's cross country and women's tennis, which brings Akron down to the 16 minimum required to maintain Division I status in the NCAA. Which, well, and that's the other thing that I wanted to bring up too is I think looking at this down the road, all of these schools with this idea now, and I know this is a crazy idea. Everybody's like, Alex, you're nuts, whatever. If the NCAA wanted to restructure the college football playoffs, right now's the time to start looking at doing it. Because if these schools are cutting programs and, eliminating sports, whatever, you now see a shift to FCS level or Division II level or
Right.
whatever it may be, or even just moving to a different conference. I think if we do this conference realignment, and this is just a really really big what if there's a conference realignment, we see the Pac-12 survive, we see the Big 12 survive, the Big 10, the SEC, and the ACC all survive. So the Power 5 stay. But what I see happening is we see two or three of the mid-major conferences get eliminated. And I think it's the Sun Belt, and I think it's Conference USA.
Mm-hmm.
I think the MAC survives. I think the AAC survives, and I think the Mountain West survives.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I was thinking about this too, I was talking to my dad the other day, how the Power 5 could eventually just go off and be their own thing, because the NCAA needs them more than they need the NCAA.
Very true.
Because they drive college athletics to Power 5.
Oh, 100%.
If you were to knock them 5 out, all 5 athletic directors, or the athletic directors from every program, they kind of run it. You come up with the president or however they decide to do it. I could see a scenario where they do break away from NCAA, because that's money they get to keep, and they're not. They could develop a new revenue sharing system and things like that. And maybe when it comes to that conference realignment, also you take away, like in the Big Ten, you take away a Rutgers and you bring in a Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Or a Pitt or something like that.
You bring in somebody a little bit closer, but also a little bit more competitively viable.
Sure, a team that's going to fill the seats every weekend.
Like, I'm sorry, Ohio State and Michigan, they play Rutgers. Sure, those stadiums still, have over 100,000 people in them for those games, but I would rather see Ohio State play Cincinnati, who consistently ranks in the top 25, versus a Rutgers who, hey, we might win 4 games this year. It's like you said, it's all about what's going to put people in the seats, and an Ohio State versus Cincinnati, or a Pitt versus Penn State, which is a rivalry, of course, but a Pitt versus Penn State every single year as a conference game would bring in so much more money.
A lot more, and it'd be more intriguing for fans.
Yeah.
Because one, they don't have to travel very far. And two, you're going to have people in the seats. I've been to IU games when Ohio State's down there, and it's more Ohio State fans.
Yeah.
So that's where that conference realignment comes in. But then also they kind of break away from the NCAA, because I think it was Paul Feinbaum on First Take the other day. He brought this idea up, and it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It really does. They have their own rules, their own governing body. Because again, the NCAA needs them more than they need the NCAA.
Absolutely, and that's the critical portion of all this. It's the NCAA has operated so long as the you follow our rules, you don't like it, well, too bad, you have nowhere else to go. Now those Power 5 schools have gained so much power, in a sense, that they could basically give the NCAA a letter saying, look, we're done. We're doing our own thing. Enjoy your group of 5 schools. Enjoy your FCS. Enjoy, all that money is lost because now the power has shifted to that of the NCAA or 5 schools.
Right. And then even that might be a point where they do expand a playoff too. If they were to, do their own thing, they could expand to a 6 or an 8-team playoff. In that part, because it'd be, one, they could afford it, and two, you're cutting out. I would say you'd probably cut out some of the tune-up games at the beginning of the year, also.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean and that's the other thing is if you force this conference realignment, then everybody's competing. You've got 7-8 conferences. This is where you restructure it. You get 7-8 conferences. And now you're hoping for an at-large bid. You now have to, if you're Alabama, not schedule a Kent State with 2 weeks left in the season. You now have to schedule a better opponent if you lost to LSU to hope to get an at-large bid. So I think it's an incentive as well for the restructuring, because now you can say, well, look, we scheduled a Big Ten opponent. Yes, they might be a weaker Big Ten opponent, but it still carries more weight than saying we scheduled a Conference USA opponent.
Exactly. I don't know. I think the next month or two, really, because I think these guys need to get there by the 1st of July
Mm-hmm.
or 1st of June, one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember, but in order to prep for the season and be
I think
ready
it
for
was
week one,
July is what
the
I saw.
July.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and there's gonna be a lot to tell here in the next couple of weeks, really, because
Mm-hmm.
that date's going to come up. I just saw something where Notre Dame plans on going back to school beginning of August.
Mm-hmm.
They're opening up their fall semester.
Yeah,
Yeah, right here.
that's a
Notre Dame
lot of schools
announces
around here too.
the week of August 10th is the beginning of fall semester.
Wow,
So
that's early.
that's two. Yeah, they it will begin the week of August 10th, 2 weeks earlier than previous planned, and end before Thanksgiving, foregoing fall break. So this gives you a longer Christmas break. Essentially, is what they're doing.
Saves them money on housing and keeping dorms warm for
Sure.
students and whatnot. So
And
I
that's
get it.
one other thing too that'd be interesting. Also, talking about conference realignment. What about the independent schools?
Mm. Yeah, the Notre Dames, the BYU's. That's tough.
Yeah, I think Navy they're independent.
Mm-hmm.
Who else would be?
SMU.
SM.
I believe SMU
No,
is.
are they I thought they're AAC.
Are they? Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Because they play Memphis and all those guys.
Uh,
So yeah, that could be
yeah.
interesting. Part two, I didn't think about that.
There are 7 independent schools. It is Notre Dame, BYU, Army, New Mexico, UMass. I didn't know UMass was independent. UConn.
Well, yeah, UConn was a big part of the Big 12 or the Big
Yep.
East.
And then Liberty.
Liberty, they're D1.
Yep. Yeah, because they were in a bowl game this year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because that's right. Hugh Freeze is their coach.
Mm-hmm. And they had, I think it was LaVisca Chenault. No, that was
Yep.
Colorado. Yeah, LaVisca played for Colorado.
That's right.
But yeah, so yeah, they are also a D1 independent program. They do have athletic affiliations for like basketball and stuff, but for as in terms of football, they are fully independent.
Interesting. So it's gonna be because like we've mentioned, it's gonna be a very interesting
Mm-hmm.
couple of weeks here to see what really happens with the conferences and smaller mid-major schools.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I thought it was interesting. I want to watch that interview that you texted me about earlier. Jordan Strack had with the Bowling Green baseball coach. The guy's been there 30 years. And that's just mind blowing to think that you were told probably through an email. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if it's a Zoom call, email, but you never want to be delivered news like, hey, we're cutting your program when you've put your life work. I mean, that's been his entire career he's put into that school. And that's just, I can't even imagine being told you're losing your job because of this, and it's a permanent loss.
Yeah, that's a tough spot because especially for a guy who's been there so long, what's his next step? And I'm sure these guys will be given the right to transfer immediately with the immediate eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
But are they? That's gonna be the interesting part because obviously most baseball programs don't have 53 spots.
Right.
Yeah. So it's really going to be a numbers game for a lot of these kids, unfortunately. And you kind of just, especially if you're a senior, or going into your senior year rather,
Mm-hmm.
it's tough.
Well, and it's really interesting. I'm looking at the report from the Toledo Blade here. The fiscal year of 2019, Bowling Green reported $26 million in revenue. The university's biggest source of sports revenue was from its own students at $13 million in mandatory fees to the Department of Athletics. Half of it from those, that's from the students. Mm-hmm. And that just blows my mind. And now you can't, if you're an athletic department, sure, you can try to force those fees, but there are students who are going to fight that. Look, we got to witness no sports. Why am I paying this fee? And there will be students who fight that.
Sure. I don't blame them either.
Miami University collected almost $18 million in student fees for athletics. Ohio universities were 60% subsidized by the students. Toledo needed $23 million combined from university support and student fees, and that's quadruple what it collected in donations and season ticket sales combined. Wow.
Yikes.
This is going to have a lot more reaching ramifications, I think, than anybody's really thinking. John Steinbrecher, for the commissioner for the MAC, I think he's thinking very forward. He was one of the first to kind of cancel the rest of the conference tournament. He's, really looking at the MAC budget, and he's really trying to make sure that it can stay together. But I think because we've seen so much parity with Power 5 and Group of 5, this is going to devastate so many Group of 5 schools. If you're not good at football or basketball, your school's devastated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something too. I'd like to reach out back to Coach Myers and talk to him about.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's got to be kind of looking over his shoulder now too. I would imagine.
Oh, I would imagine so.
With what's going on, and I don't know. It's obviously both MAC guys. It's a bummer to see. We hate to see it to our schools. Luckily, Ball State hasn't cut anything yet. Toledo, I don't think have they? No,
Toledo hasn't yet. I'm sure it's that's something that our athletic department's looking at. But I did want to point out, we're talking about these changes. There are 17 sponsored or postseason tournaments 17 tournaments for postseason play in the Mid-American Conference. They've eliminated 8 of those tournaments, which include field hockey, soccer for men and women's tennis, women's lacrosse, softball, and baseball. You go to the NCAA based on your regular season league record.
Right.
So if you're a 6 seed, there's no hope of upsetting the 1 seed like we've had, how many times in these tournaments. The MAC volleyball tournament will be reduced from the top 18 to the top 4. Men and women's basketball will be just the top 8. And then men and women's swimming and diving from 4 days to 3. Oh, here's the one that's going to affect Coach Myers. Outdoor track from 3 days to 2. And yeah, that's wow. Wow. That's insane.
Yeah, that is. That's going to be quite an adjustment, I'd imagine.
Mm-hmm. It's a bunch of crunch times for sure.
It really is. So what else do we got going on in the world of sports? Did you watch the Last Dance last night?
Well, that's why I was texting you last night. I was just like, I just couldn't believe just some of the ridiculous stuff. I laughed at your tweet about Michael's secret stuff being a thing. And that was really, really funny. Just this whole thing is like poisoning the pizza, like just everything. It's almost not real watching this,
right?
It's like, who created this? Like, who created this beautiful plot of ridiculousness? Like, I can't even, like, and dude, Michael Jordan is a savage. I don't care. Like, anybody else, if that happened today instead of 30 years ago, he would be buried alive on social media.
Absolutely.
For some of his remarks.
The things that he would say to Jerry Krause and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way.
He'd be done.
And I don't know. It was just, obviously I knew a lot of stuff about it, but for example, about Jordan anyway, but I did not know about Steve Kerr's father. That was an interesting story. I didn't know that either, about him being assassinated in the Middle East.
Yeah, just absolutely nuts.
Yeah, I did not know that, and I thought that was a really interesting part because it kind of broke up the whole story. To go, oh yeah, I mean, Steve Kerr is a relevant person right now in the league, and he will be for a long time.
Sure.
And that was a very interesting story they brought in. Dennis Rodman, somebody who can do no wrong.
Dennis Rodman
wins
is
on
just
and
like, just no matter what. Like, the man literally in the middle of the NBA Finals went to WWE. Like,
yeah.
What? Like,
he was with the Hulkster.
Yeah.
NWO for life.
Like, I just can't even... I can't wrap my head around that. Like, you're in the middle of playing for a league championship, and you're like, I'm just going to go wrestle. Like, what?
Right. And the funny part was the video of him sneaking out of the back of the arena so the media didn't get to him. I don't know if you saw that part or
I
not.
did not catch that part. No.
Yeah, the PR person for the Bulls said, "All right, we're going to go out this door and this door," and he goes, "All right," so they can avoid the media. And so they
Jeez.
went out the back door, but the media saw it. We're chasing him down a hallway, but
Oh
he
my
gets into a
gosh.
truck quick enough and speeds off, so the media couldn't get to him. But Dennis Rodman's one of those guys who, as long as he gets his work done, just leave him alone.
Well,
It's just one of those
exactly.
things. As long as it gets done, then hey, no problems. But yeah, he went with Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Hulk Hogan, Bischoff, the NWO.
Hmm.
So what the Rodzilla? What a
Yeah.
rough life he
Yeah.
lived.
It's just so just so many things are so ridiculous. I just I don't I don't know, man. Like that whole team, like there's just so much going on. Like I will say something, and I mentioned this to you last night. I really hope they put it in like Blu-ray form or something, because I will purchase that immediately. Be,
Sure.
because it's such a neat thing to see and to have documented. I've loved watching, you know, the throughout the series. Kobe Bryant talking about how Michael kind of mentored him, things like that. Just I love all those little things, and it's so cool to see just Michael kind of talking about it years later. Like, yeah, this, yeah, that. Like he's a bad man. Like I don't care what
Yeah.
anybody says. He's just a bad man.
He is. So after that sixth championship, here's what happened. Phil Jackson was replaced, like he
Hmm.
was told at the beginning of the year he would be.
Hmm.
Michael Jordan went back into retirement. Scottie Pippen was traded, which I believe that was to Portland.
Yep.
And then Dennis Rodman was released. And then Steve Kerr was traded to San Antonio, where he won a championship, his fourth championship in a row. So that's what happened all after that sixth championship, all just to make Jerry Krause happy and that he wanted to rebuild. Well, the Bulls are still rebuilding all these
Hmm.
years later.
Right.
They had their shot with Derrick Rose, but he couldn't stay healthy. So it
I
was
can't even
interesting, though. And it's
imagine.
kind of a bummer that's over already. Because that was
Right.
the thing. These past 5 weeks have flown by because we've been able to look forward to that.
Hmm.
So
Well, that's exactly what it's been. Is that you've had something to look forward to, and there's just been now we go back to our regularly scheduled, weekend of no sports. But and I don't know if this was true. They're doing like a little like a movie about like Game 6 or something. Did I see that? Is that correct?
I think they're going to show the game on ESPN
Okay.
on Wednesday, I believe is what I saw. I could be wrong,
Let me
but
pull that up real
I
quick.
think that's what I saw.
Oh yeah, they're doing a movie about Game 6 of the NBA 1998 NBA Finals. It's going to
Okay.
show a new presentation of the game.
Okay.
So that'll be
Probably
fun.
probably going to put it in HD, I'm assuming.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that makes the most sense. Um,
Um,
yeah.
but that'll be interesting because that was against Utah, right?
Yep, against the Jazz.
Yeah.
87-86 was the final score.
Yeah.
Jordan hit the game winner with 5.2 seconds left in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, high definition was still in its infancy in 1998.
Wow. And 98 doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. But then you think that's 22 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, AJ, we're
Right.
old. They California is talking about opening sports back up, as is Florida and Texas,
Okay.
with no spectators. So that'll be interesting. I know MLB was in a fight over that, and
Mm-hmm.
there were guys on Twitter, mostly Trevor Bauer, on Twitter, just kind of blowing it up about this is the price we agreed on, that I would get paid for the season, and so there's a lot of back and forth there. I don't know if you've seen anything. I haven't seen anything definitive on yes, this is what they came to.
Yeah, I don't think they've come to an agreement yet because they had originally agreed on a 50-50 split,
Hmm.
but you know, that's what they first, like I said, first agreed on, and now they're trying to change it up
Hmm.
and what have you. Uh, but I believe they wanted to start the season July 1st. I believe was what.
Yeah, that weekend.
Mm-hmm. And then I sent it to you, Bryce Harper's idea.
Yeah.
I was all in on that.
We could talk about that.
Let's do it.
That's intense, but I really, really loved it. Let me pull that back up really quick.
College World Series style would be incredible.
I absolutely love it. He and they I would personally kind of prefer maybe they do 120 games instead of 132, I think is what he proposed.
Yeah, I pulled it up right here.
Okay.
So East West, just like the NBA, July has 31 days, August has 31 days, September has 30, October has 31, November has 15. 135 games, day off every 2 weeks, Monday and Sunday, doubleheaders, 7 innings. 30 players, 6-man rotation, save arms, if pitchers wanted this. No big deal, DH and other ideas possible. Need to figure out if someone gets hurt, what happens, I'm not sure, who you call up, etc., etc. Playoff, 2-week World Series like Super Bowl week. 10 teams like a round-robin College World Series style at the new Texas Stadium.
Yep.
3-game series. If you win the series, you move on. If you lose, you play the other. And a 1-game wild card winner moves on from that. Other teams out. Or you could play it in Vegas so that you can use the strip hotels and players could use the hotel for all those guys, to contain if possible. But that might interfere with the NBA too. That's what they decided to do as well. 2 teams left, 7-game World Series. They would get 2 days off before the series. With 2 days off, you do during those 2 games off, you do an all-star home run derby. You could do the MLB awards at that time as well. No blackouts, 2-week World Series like Super Bowl week. Then the backup season 2 years. You back up the next 2 years, May 1st and April 1st.
So I'm on board for quite a bit of that, frankly. I think 135 games is intense. I think 120 games would be great. Sure, it's only knocking 15 games off, but then you're getting some of those guys a chance to actually rest. Because I don't care who you are, playing 135 games in 3.5 months, that's tough. That's tough on anybody. But I really, really like it, and I think it's well thought out. I think it's effective. I think you get the opportunity to really, I guess, kind of see just how tough some of these players are. And whoever wins the World Series this year, 120 games, 135, 82, it doesn't matter. There's going to be an asterisk next to that because they didn't play a full season. So whoever the winner is, if it's Cleveland, if it's, LA, whoever, always going to have an asterisk because it was a shortened season. Similar to the strike in, 94, I believe?
96, wasn't it?
Was it?
It was 94, 96. So the Indians went to the World Series in 95, 97.
94, 95. Yep.
94, 95, okay. So, there's another, that's an idea to bring up too. Who knows what's going to happen? I think the higher-ups here are taking they're looking at every idea right now, trying to get in, trying to figure out their plan because, again, this is something that's never happened before. So the powers to be are kind of taking any and all ideas at this point, I can imagine.
Oh, for sure. I can't imagine that they've ruled anything out.
No.
I'm sure that they're really, like you said, they're considering everything from the plausible to the crazy.
Yeah, and I think before any of this gets done, they have to figure out what they're doing with their players financially, the 50-50 split or whatever other options that have been out there. But I think they'll end up staying with the 50-50 because that is what was previously agreed upon.
Yep. Well, and I think the players have every right to fight that and fight that hard. This is what we agreed to. This is what you proposed. This is what we're sticking to. This was your proposal, not ours.
Yeah. Well, we got a guest next week. Do you want to give some details on that one?
Yeah. So this one I'm super excited about. Being a Toledo guy, like I am, we are going to be joined for our June portion of our Year of MACtion. We're going to be joined by the Toledo women's head coach, Tricia Cullip, who has been at Toledo for quite a while, actually. I believe she's been there for 11 years, 12 years maybe. But let me just read down her list of accolades. She's done a lot in her career. She's coached at Evansville to start her college coaching career.
All right. Well, I like to hear that.
Yeah.
Because that junior college I went to was Vincennes University, and that was an hour up the road. So
Okay.
there were some girls who I went to school with down there who ended up playing at Evansville.
Okay. Yeah, so her college coaching career, she started at Radford University as an assistant. She played at Purdue, fun fact. So she's a Big Ten woman. She assistant coach at Long Beach State, another well-known basketball school. Xavier, assistant coach, Evansville for 8 years, and then for the last 12 years she has been at Toledo. Now, looking at her records and things that she has done since coming to Toledo, she has 220 wins to 106 losses as an overall on her overall record at Toledo. She has an NCAA tournament appearance back in 2016, 2017. She's won several regular season MAC titles. She has also won a WNIT national championship where they beat USC at Savage Arena on live television. And I remember watching that game on TV because I had some friends who went to Toledo, but I wasn't a student at Toledo at the time. And I remember watching that and I was like, okay, hey, I'm happy for my friends. But now that I'm a student at Toledo, it's like, wow, this is a really big deal. Mm-hmm. So it's a really cool thing to see. I'm super excited to have her. She's got a lot of knowledge. She really knows college basketball on the women's side and on the men's side as well. I mean, she's just very knowledgeable about everything. Yeah. She's
and I'm excited to talk about the women's MAC as a whole this year because MAC basketball is probably one of the most competitive years they've had in a long time.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Toledo, I look at the standings. Toledo finished 4th in the West last year. They don't have the stats up for this year yet or the win-losses for this year yet. But, I mean, people know her. She followed us back on Twitter. I followed her a couple days ago, and then she followed us back. And I was just kind of looking at some of the people that she has connections with, and these are people from all over the country from all levels of college basketball. So she's very well respected, and it's cool to have her in the conference because she's a very knowledgeable and a very good coach.
Yeah, right here, Toledo in the MAC this year, there were 7-11 in the West. When that was in Central Michigan. It was Central Michigan, Ball State, Western, Eastern Toledo, and NIU. They're in the West.
Okay. They
finished 9 games back, but overall they were 14-17 on the year.
Yep.
7-7 at home and 6-9 on the road.
Yeah, no, it was a little bit of a rough season this year. I mean,
but when you look at the top teams in the MAC, they were all competitive.
Oh, 100%.
So, yeah, the MAC was a solid program this year.
Mm-hmm.
Central Michigan was 16-2, Ball State was 13-5, and then that was in the West. And then you go to the East, Kent State and Ohio were both 11-7, Buffalo 9-9, Akron 8-10. Drops off with Miami of Ohio at 4-14, and BGSU 3-15 in the conference. So really, it was just competitive all around, I think.
Yep, it was very competitive all around, and just top to bottom. I mean, and those scores were close all the time too. Something that I appreciate with what she's done, like she's really changed the culture of Toledo basketball. I mean, Toledo basketball for the women's side. Mark Ellen, he was the coach prior to that, and he did some really nice things. They had some great seasons under him, but towards the end of his career, like they were really struggling to find their identity. And then, Coach Call-Up comes in, they create a new identity. They've got, they get guys or girls like Nama Shafir from Israel, who, I mean, that's a name a lot of people know. Courtney Ingersoll, they had a lot of phenomenal players
Yeah, I mean,
lead
they
them to a
took.
national championship.
Speaking of close games, they took Notre Dame to the wire.
Yep.
Only lost by 3. It was 54-51.
Yeah.
So, in looking at some of the scores here, they were in a lot of games. It was just
Mhm.
coming down to the last couple. Here's a 5-pointer, 6-pointer, 1-pointer. So, yeah, they were in a lot of close games, and I think I'll have to look and ask her if she had a young team or not, and just that coming with experience closing games like that.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and she had I want to say she had 2 seniors on the team this year, but everybody else was like sophomores. So
Yeah.
I think it was a very young team. But like I said, I'm very excited to have her on. This is just such a neat thing to have. I mean, since she's taken over, Toledo's been top 30 in attendance for women's basketball for like the last 10 years. Which is impressive considering it's a MAC school. And so, like I said, super excited to have her on. It's going to be a great conversation from somebody who knows basketball in a variety of different leagues, Big Ten, playing with, working with Evansville and Xavier. Like, I'm really, really excited to have her. And it's cool to get to talk to somebody, from right here in town.
Sure. Absolutely.
So, yeah, man. I
think that's it. It's
Yeah,
been a slow week.
it's really been a slow week. I appreciate everybody who's been listening to us. Oh yeah, we might as well announce it. We have a Facebook page now.
We do.
That as of today. So I guess we'll do closing and we'll cover that. But yeah, it's been a really slow week. Fortunately we've had the MJ documentary, kind of pushing us forward. Our continued MACtion segment to kind of push us forward. But yeah, until we get sports back, this is a little tough. I'm sure that we're not the only podcast out there who is dealing with this stuff, but it's been a rough go, and we appreciate everybody who's been listening to us. Thank you for sticking with us. It really does help us a lot. We appreciate it. We appreciate the support. Chris Wormley's interview is now in our top 3 all time. So that was exciting to have. Chris was a great guest a couple weeks ago. Coach Myers again, last week. And it's just we've had some good shows lately. So I think this was kind of our cool down show after the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's kind of we had some interesting news from the MAC conference this week, and that's really about it. I mean, we had NASCAR yesterday. That was sports on. UFC came on last week. Golf was on yesterday. That was really fun to watch. So yeah, we're slowly getting back into things here, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks, teams. Well, I think NFL facilities open up next week for teams.
Next week or the week after, yeah.
Yeah, one of the two coming up here soon. So that'll be fun to get back into, and then hopefully by the beginning of July or so, we'll have college football teams starting to report back to camp, so they can get practice underway and get ready for the season. Sure, and I'm assuming it's going to be a season without fans. That's just how it's going to go.
I mean, I would be very surprised if we saw a season with any fans. Now postseason, postseason I could see it maybe, but regular season probably not a chance. Yeah.
So, we'll keep everybody up to date on that. As long as we get information, we'll pass it along to you. Sure. But until that time, partner.
Cool, man. So, yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We definitely appreciate it. Like I said, you can follow us on Facebook now. You can find us at the College Sports Connection Podcast. Go like us. We're going to be posting our shows on there. We're going to be posting articles, adding some of our own content, polls, things like that. So make sure you guys check that out. We are also on Twitter still. We've been slowly increasing our followers. We're at almost 450 now. So guys, please keep sharing that. Please keep retweeting and following, and we definitely appreciate that. You can find us at College Sport Pod. You can follow both AJ and myself. You can find me at Sheer Dumb Luck. You can follow AJ at Roughing55.
Yep.
And make sure you guys hop on over to the Beard Brothers Fantasy Football Podcast. That is our Beard cousins. They are also part of the Four Beersmen Sports Network. That's a lot of beards I just said there.
Right.
But make sure you guys follow them. They are Beard Bros FF. You can also find them on Facebook, Beard Brothers Fantasy Football Podcast. And AJ, is there anything else you wanted to add, man?
That's all set, man. We everybody, we thank you for joining us tonight. We've got a good show coming up for you next week, so make sure you tune in for that.
Yeah. Cool, guys. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
See ya.